London, the House of Windsor, may have weathered decades of scandal, heartbreak, and political turbulence. But what is unfolding behind palace gates now could mark one of its most personal and volatile reckonings yet. According to multiple royal sources, Duchess Meghan Markle has delivered an extraordinary private ultimatum to Prince Harry. Either he secures a formal but temporary role under King Charles's patronage, or she will begin pursuing a legal separation. This explosive development, insiders say, has plunged Prince Harry into emotional and logistical chaos, with desperate calls, factional pleas, and even tentative communications with Prince William reportedly underway. But at the center of it all is a man who now finds himself once again torn between a royal bloodline and a Hollywood love story that appears to be cracking at its most fragile seams. Sources close to Montecito have confirmed to multiple outlets that Prince Harry and Meghan Markle's relationship has been under unprecedented strain since late spring. While the couple has maintained their public smiles during recent charity appearances, a different narrative has quietly emerged among staff and confidants. Meghan has grown increasingly disillusioned with their current lifestyle, said one senior associate who has previously worked with Arcuel. The brand isn't landing like she expected. The speaking gigs are drying up, the Netflix spotlight has cooled, and she blames Harry for not securing something more solid, something with royal weight. That something appears to be a reinstated formal role within the British monarchy, not for both sexes, but for Harry alone. The calculation, the source continued, is that if Harry were to secure a short-term diplomatic or ceremonial post under King Charles, even just a 6-month Commonwealth ambassadorial stint, it would lend them credibility in America again. Meghan's message was, "Make it happen or I walk." The alleged ultimatum was first hinted at by a British tabloid weeks ago, but dismissed as speculation. Now, palace aides and even certain MPs are speaking of the situation in more serious terms. According to two independent insiders with knowledge of the Sussex household, Meghan confronted Harry during a private moment in May, after a high-level Hollywood pitch meeting was reportedly cancelled at the last minute due to what industry execs described as brand fatigue. She told him, "You left it all for me. Now you need to go back and fix it. I need a husband who carries weight," one source claimed. She framed it as a temporary mission, 6 months. Topspot made it clear she wouldn't tolerate continued obscurity. That's when the word divorce was first mentioned. The shock of the confrontation, sources say, visibly broke Harry, who has since reached out not just to King Charles, but also to former private secretaries and even his old protection detail. "He's scrambling," said a former palace staffer. He never imagined being forced to choose between salvaging his marriage and crawling back to the family that exiled him. So how has King Charles responded to his son's frantic outreach? According to palace sources, the monarch has been reserved but not dismissive. Charles has reportedly expressed willingness to explore a ceremonial or diplomatic role for Harry, particularly one that requires international presence and minimal UK visibility. "The king is soft-hearted when it comes to Harry, even now," said a former Lord Chamberlain, "but there's a line he won't cross. He won't upset William or Camilla to appease Meghan." That's the tension. Indeed, Camilla is said to be adamantly opposed to giving Harry any formal title or access. One source close to the Queen Consort remarked bluntly, "We've spent years containing the damage. Bringing him back, even temporarily, risks opening the floodgates." Nevertheless, behind the curtain, options are being floated. A temporary ambassadorial mission to Africa or India under Commonwealth auspices, a 6-month youth mental health envoy role, entirely abroad, with no UK-facing duties, a return to the Invictus Games in a royal-adjacent capacity. If managed discreetly, all three would be packaged as non-political, non-residential, limited-scope positions. But even these are facing heavy internal resistance. If Charles is hesitant, Prince William is reportedly livid. Several insiders claim that William was not informed by his father of Harry's outreach, but rather heard about it through Kensington staff who maintain informal ties with Clarence house aides. The moment he found out, William reportedly exploded, said one source. His exact words were, "Absolutely not. He chose his path. He does not get to waltz back in to save his marriage." Behind William's fury lies a more strategic fear that reintroducing Harry even in a token role would append the careful branding and positioning he and Kate have built for the future monarchy. "They've done everything by the book," said a senior royal watcher. "They've picked up the slack. They've stayed silent. And now, once again, Harry threatens to overshadow them with chaos." William is understood to have warned Palisades that if Charles caves to Harry's request, he and Kate may reconsider upcoming joint engagements with the king. That, insiders say, is no idle threat. Meanwhile, Meghan is not sitting idle. Multiple media contacts in Los Angeles have reported preliminary outreach from representatives linked to the Sussexes, gauging interest in exclusive interviews or docuseries projects centered on second chances, personal growth, and fighting for love. Translation: if Harry fails to deliver the role, Meghan may be preparing to go public with her narrative, positioning herself as a woman forced to choose between love and sanity. "She's ready to detonate," said one Hollywood producer who's worked with Meghan in the past. If Harry doesn't come through, she's got an entire playbook, lips, emails, therapy logs, everything, and she's ready to use it. The threat of a divorce interview with Oprah, Anderson Cooper, or even a foreign network is being treated as credible within royal circles. One source said bluntly, the palace is already drafting contingency media responses. They're preparing for the worst. Those closest to Harry now describe him as haunted, exhausted, and not sleeping. He's reportedly taken solo trips to private retreats in Idaho and Canada in recent weeks, ostensibly for nature and reflection. But staff say these trips are laced with desperation. He's torn in half, one friend confided. He still loves Meghan, but he's finally seeing that her vision for their life is irreconcilable with the one he imagined when he walked away from the crown. A heartbreaking detail emerged from a Montecito aide. Harry reportedly dug out a framed photo of Princess Diana from a sealed keepsake box and now keeps it by his bedside again. He says she'd understand, that she'd want him to be happy. But he also knows she warned him about fame, about isolation, about being used. Multiple sources confirm that Meghan has given Harry until late August to secure a concrete royal role, one with public visibility and official title, even if ceremonial or symbolic. Failure to do so, insiders say, will result in a pause in cohabitation, with Meghan planning to relocate to a private residence in Malibu. While legal arrangements begin, legal teams have reportedly been activated on both sides, with UK attorneys discreetly contacted in the event. Custody discussions are required for Archie and Lilibet. Meghan's attorneys are believed to be preparing a modern divorce narrative, one in which she paints herself as a woman who fought for love, left her country, endured abuse, and ultimately had to walk away for the children's sake. For Harry, the road ahead is unclear. He faces an impossible decision: swallow his pride, bend the knee to a monarchy that never fully welcomed Meghan and return in a diminished role, or lose the family he built and the woman he defied the world for. As the crown's future hangs delicately on William and Kate's shoulders, and King Charles battles frailty and factionalism, this sudden re-emergence of Harry's plea for relevance may mark the beginning of the next great royal fracture. Unlike the quiet crisis of 1992 or the fiery chaos of Megxit, this one is deeply personal and dangerously public, because now, it's not just about duty, it's about a man begging for a place to belong, while a woman decides if her king has failed her one final time. The early morning fog had barely lifted over Heathrow Airport when the discreet black SUV pulled away from the tarmac, its windows tinted, its destination unknown to onlookers. Inside, Prince Harry sat motionless, his face pale and jaw clenched. He had flown alone, no aides, no security detail of his own, no Meghan. His only companion on this unannounced trip was a trembling handwritten letter folded in the inner pocket of his blazer, one addressed to his father. The journey had not been easy to arrange. Calls had gone unanswered. Private secretaries had diverted inquiries. Even the Royal Communications Office had initially claimed no knowledge of Harry's flight plans. But through a single, trusted intermediary from his former military days, Harry had managed to secure a brief window on hour at Clarence House. The request had been sent through a back channel, not officially acknowledged, but not denied either. As the car slowed before the gates, the reality of what he was about to do began to crystallize. Harry was not returning to his homeland as a prince, but as a man trying to salvage the last threads of a life that was quickly unraveling. He wasn't here to reclaim a role. He was here to beg for one. Upon entering Clarence House, the reception was cold. The staff members he had once greeted with warmth now averted their eyes. No smiles, no "Your Royal Highness." A butler merely gestured toward the morning room and informed him that the king would arrive shortly. But what no one had warned him about was who entered first. Queen Camilla. Harry froze as she stepped into the room, flanked by a senior aide. She wore a severe expression, every line of her face drawn tight with disapproval. The silence between them was immediate and heavy. Camilla, never one for subtlety, broke it first. "So, you're here to beg then?" Harry blinked, unsure if he had misheard her. He wasn't expecting warmth, but the bluntness stunned him. "I came to speak with my father," he said evenly. "I didn't know you'd be here." Camilla's laugh was dry and without mirth. "Oh, don't be naive. You come knocking on the doors of the monarchy you abandoned, and you thought I wouldn't make it my business." She took a step closer, her voice lowering to a sharp whisper. "Let me make one thing clear, Harry. I warned Charles years ago. I told him your return would come with conditions, with demands, with chaos. You walked away. And now that your wife's fairy tale is failing, you want to be handed relevance again." Harry swallowed hard, his voice steady but breaking. "I didn't come here for relevance. I came because Meghan is serious. She's ready to walk away if I don't." "Then let her walk," Camilla snapped, cutting him off. "What, do you think this is a revolving door? You and your wife burned this family to the ground with interviews, with books, with Netflix, and now you want a desk, a flag, and a medal to fix your marriage." He looked away, clenching his fists. "I just want to help again. Even for a few months." Camilla stepped even closer. "Help who? Harry, the country, or yourself?" Before Harry could reply, the doors opened. King Charles entered slowly, supported subtly by a walking cane. He appeared older, frailer than Harry remembered, thinner, paler, but his presence still commanded attention. Camilla stepped aside, her eyes never leaving Harry as she exited. Without another word, the room fell silent again, broken only by the ticking of a small brass clock on the mantel. Charles regarded his son with tired eyes. He said nothing for a long moment. "You've come," he said at last, quietly. "I had no choice," Harry replied. "You always had a choice," the king said, walking past him toward the window. "You just never liked the consequences." Harry stepped forward, pulling the folded letter from his pocket. He held it out, but Charles made no move to take it. "I'm not here to relive the past. I just need something, a role, a post. Something that will allow Meghan to feel there's still some weight in our name." Charles turned slowly. "So this is about her." "It's about us," Harry said, his voice cracking. "She's given everything up. America isn't working. People see us as lost. If I could serve for even 6 months, it might restore some of what we've lost. She's ready to leave." There was no sound in the room for nearly a minute. Finally, Charles took the letter, but didn't open it. "You come to me with a ticking clock, an ultimatum, and expect me to bend the institution to save your marriage." "No," Harry whispered. "I'm asking as your son." Charles looked down at the letter in his hands. "You were once the boy who climbed trees to bring your brother's kite down, the one who wore your mother's smile. I wanted to believe there was a way back for you, but you're asking for something I cannot give, not without consequence." "I don't care about the others," Harry snapped. "I don't care what William thinks." "You should," the king said, sharply now, "because when I'm gone, he is the crown. And you've made an enemy of him." Harry paced, his hands trembling. "Please," he said. "Just something, a title, a mission. I'll go to Africa, to Canada, anywhere. Just let me serve." The door creaked open again. To Harry's surprise, Princess Anne entered. She was not expected. She walked in briskly, her face stern but not unkind. Her gaze moved from Charles to Harry. "You summoned me." Charles nodded toward Harry. "He needs clarity, and I'm too tired to give it." Anne walked to Harry and stood still. "You want a role?" she asked. "Then earn it." "I will," Harry said quickly. "I'll do anything." Anne didn't blink. "You will not get it through guilt, or threats, or begging. That's not how this works." Harry lowered his head. "I've lost everything," he said quietly. "I don't want to lose her too." Anne took a breath. Her voice softened, but only slightly. "We are a family, Harry, but we are also an institution. If you wish to be part of it again, even temporarily, you must first prove your loyalty. That means silence, service, and accountability." He looked up, confused. "What does that mean?" "It means you stop the leaks. You shut down the memoirs. You close the Hollywood doors. You speak to no press. You sign what needs to be signed. You rebuild from nothing." "And Meghan?" he asked. Anne's eyes hardened again. "She must stay out of it." The weight of that sentence landed with force. Harry turned toward Charles, but the king simply nodded in agreement. No role would come unless Meghan was absent from it entirely. The implication was clear. If he wanted back even for a flicker of dignity, he would have to do it alone. That night Harry stayed in a discreet guest house on the outskirts of Sandringham. No royal suite, no chauffeurs, just a firelit room and the echo of his mother's voice in memory. Diana had once told him, "You'll always have to choose between what you want and what's right." The following morning, he wrote a message. To Meghan it was not a surrender, but it was not what she wanted either. He explained what had been offered, the terms, the limitations, the exclusion. "The exclusion," she responded hours later. The message was short. "Then I can't wait." Harry sat alone, for a long time. In that silence, he realized that returning to royalty might not save his marriage, but refusing it would only deepen the abyss in a matter of days. The monarchy would meet again behind closed doors. Princess Anne would lead the internal review. Charles would read Harry's letter again. William would refuse to participate, and Meghan would begin preparing a public appearance, one that insiders now suspect could be the beginning of her own solo chapter. Whatever came next, the decision had been made. Harry would re-enter the fold. Alone. The silence from Montecito was deafening, but no one in London mistook it for acceptance. When Meghan received Harry's final message from the UK, confirming he had agreed to return to royal duties alone under strict conditions, and only temporarily, the response had been swift but strategically controlled. No tantrums, no crying fits, just a single, scathing reply. "Then I can't wait." Those words were not sent in frustration, but with intent. Meghan knew what came next. If Harry believed he could salvage their future by crawling back to a family that had frozen them out, then she would ensure the entire world watched his humiliation in real time. Within 24 hours, her team in California was mobilized. Private meetings were hastily arranged with senior executives at streaming platforms, talk show producers, and a handful of sympathetic journalists. For months, Meghan had been quietly working on a project under the radar, a personal documentary exploring power, legacy, and the price of visibility. Now, she gave the green light to accelerate production. Sources close to Archewell confirmed that Meghan had also reopened conversations with a top-tier literary agent. A manuscript once shelved after the backlash of Harry's Spare was now back on the table. This one would be hers, and hers alone. It would focus on motherhood, sacrifice, and betrayal, three themes she knew would resonate with the public if delivered with the right emotional cadence in private. Meghan no longer referred to Harry as my husband, but instead as the father of my children. Behind palace walls, the reaction to Harry's acceptance of the monarchy's conditions had been mixed. Princess Anne had remained firm in her stipulations. Harry would be offered a limited, non-public role, logistical support for upcoming Commonwealth initiatives in Africa provided he adhered to a strict code of silence and completely disconnected himself from Meghan's public endeavors. It was, in every sense, a probationary position. But it was Prince William who saw the storm coming first. William had received no direct word from his brother, no apology, no explanation, not even a warning. He was told of Harry's impending re-entry by Princess Anne, who simply informed him that the king had approved a limited mission for Harry on compassionate grounds. William was livid. To those within his circle, it wasn't just about protocol, it was about protocol. Harry had defied, betrayed, and mocked the institution for years through interviews, podcasts, memoirs, and Netflix docuseries, and now, with a flick of sympathy from their aging father, he was being allowed to step foot back into royal territory. William saw it as weakness, and he resolved to correct it. Unbeknownst to most, William had been quietly strengthening his inner advisory team for months. With Kate recovering away from public life, he had turned his attention to the long game, the preservation of the monarchy's future, at the top of his agenda, ensuring that any pathway back for Harry would be temporary, invisible, and ultimately untenable. He made three key moves within the span of a week. First, he summoned the Director of Royal Protocol, demanding a formal review of all eligibility criteria surrounding senior royal engagements, even temporary ones. Any clause that could be exploited by returning non-working royals was to be tightened. Background checks, media clauses, confidentiality mandates. William wanted a paper trail that would make any extended return not just difficult, but legally complex. Second, he activated a small team within the palace's communications unit, his personal media advisors tasked with monitoring every public action taken by Meghan from California. If she so much as hinted at knowledge of Harry's reassignment, they were to respond within hours, issuing clarification statements or redirecting narratives. Finally, and most significantly, he reached out to Lord Chamberlain's office and requested a private audience with the Privy Council. The topic was classified, but insiders believe it centered around securing a future clause in royal succession policy that would formally codify the exclusion of individuals who had willfully and repeatedly undermined the dignity of the crown through external media. The clause had no precedent, but William was determined to set one. Meanwhile, King Charles, still battling the fatigue and cognitive fog of his illness, remained in retreat at Highgrove. He was aware of William's moves, but chose not to intervene. Some say he viewed William's interference as insurance, a failsafe to protect the monarchy, in case Harry's return spiraled out of control. Charles, ever the reluctant father, hoped against hope that some sliver of dignity could still be restored between his sons, but across the Atlantic, Meghan was already rewriting the narrative. She scheduled a high-profile appearance at a women's leadership forum in New York, her first solo event in months. The press release teased a personal revelation and an important message for women navigating reinvention after betrayal. The palace braced for impact. On the day of the event, Meghan appeared wearing an elegant cream suit, her posture perfect, her smile radiant. Cameras flashed. Microphones were lowered with reverence as she took the stage. She spoke of resilience, of raising children in the face of judgment, of making impossible choices. And then, without naming him directly, she said, "Sometimes, when the world you love refuses to evolve, you have to walk away. Not because you don't care, but because you do." The crowd erupted. Online hashtags began to trend. Reclaiming Meghan, not backwards, Windsor wounds the palace's communications office issued no statement that night, but internally, staff reported that the Queen Consort was furious. Princess Anne warned Charles that the experiment had failed before it began, and William reportedly told aides that if Meghan released even one page of her manuscript before Harry's assignment ended, it's over. As the week unfolded, it became clear that Meghan had no intention of holding back. She had scheduled a second appearance, this time on a primetime late-night interview show. Rumors swirled that she had already signed with a major publishing house. A top media insider claimed Meghan had negotiated exclusive rights to share private photographs and correspondence between her and Harry during their most turbulent months. Images never before seen by the public. In London, Harry was informed of this escalation by an aide. He stared at the printed transcript of Meghan's New York remarks for several minutes before quietly folding the paper and placing it into his coat. He didn't ask to speak with her. He didn't reply to her most recent message. He simply reported to to Princess Anne's office and requested a departure date for Africa. The royal family, meanwhile, prepared for the inevitable. A quiet plan was forming inside William's office, a strategy that would render Harry's mission to Africa honorable. But finally, when his 6-month assignment ended, there would be no transition, no permanent placement, no next step. The job was not a pathway back into the firm, it was a graceful exit. And Meghan, despite her media warpath, would receive no acknowledgement. But one final twist loomed. A senior palace archivist uncovered a sealed letter, one written by Queen Elizabeth II shortly before her death. It was addressed to King Charles, and marked to be opened in the event of crisis among heirs. No one had yet opened it. As whispers of the letter's existence spread, tension within the monarchy reached a fever pitch. Did it contain instructions, a warning, or a final plea for unity? William wanted it preserved. Charles wanted to read it, and remained silent. Harry, meanwhile, boarded a flight for his Commonwealth assignment, lone escorted, carrying only a leather duffel bag and a royal tattered diplomatic passport. Meghan's next steps would be louder, sharper, more personal, and William's countermeasures were about to become permanent. The atmosphere inside Buckingham Palace had never been more charged. The quiet halls echoed with whispers of secrets and simmering plans as the monarchy's internal struggle reached a boiling point. After months of turmoil, the stakes were clear. Meghan Markle was mounting a full-scale media offensive from California, while Prince William maneuvered to solidify the institution's defenses. Determined to ensure Harry's return remained a fleeting, carefully controlled event. Meghan's first move after Harry's departure to his Commonwealth assignment was to unveil her explosive new memoir, Unbroken, a raw and unapologetic account of her time inside the royal family and the price she claimed to have paid for love and loyalty. The book's release was meticulously timed to coincide with a highly publicized interview on a major streaming platform, promising revelations that promised to change everything you thought you knew. The memoir was a firestorm. Within hours of its release, leaked excerpts were circulating worldwide. Meghan described feeling abandoned by Harry, claiming that his decision to return alone to royal duties was a betrayal orchestrated by palace insiders. She accused the institution of cruelty, manipulation, and systemic racism, words that ignited outrage among royal supporters and sympathy among her followers in London. The palace communications team scrambled to contain the fallout. King Charles, still confined at Highgrove, was briefed daily by his closest advisors. Princess Anne, ever the stoic force, demanded an emergency Privy Council meeting to address the growing threat to the monarchy's reputation. Prince William's response was swift and decisive. The Privy Council convened in secret, and under his guidance, a historic motion was introduced. It proposed a formal amendment to royal protocols, explicitly barring any family member who engaged in public acts of disloyalty or conduct damaging to the crown from holding official roles or titles. This motion was unprecedented, controversial, but the council voted overwhelmingly in favor. The decision effectively cemented Harry's exclusion from future royal functions and succession rights, a move that shocked the public and royal commentators alike. Meanwhile, Meghan continued to escalate her campaign, leveraging exclusive rights, 2 private correspondence, and previously unseen photographs. She engaged in a series of media appearances where she painted a picture of resilience and injustice. Her narrative was clear. The monarchy was broken, and she and Harry were victims of a callous system. Public opinion fractured. Social media was ablaze with debates, dividing the UK and beyond into camps of royal loyalists, Meghan supporters, and disillusioned observers. Polls showed a significant dip in the monarchy's favorability ratings, something the palace had not experienced in decades. Behind the scenes, the strain was palpable. Prince William maintained a steady public demeanor, but was privately exhausted by the relentless scrutiny and familial strife. Kate, after months away from the spotlight, returned with a renewed focus on charitable work, aiming to stabilize the family's public image. King Charles, hearing of the new developments, made a rare public statement and appeal for unity and healing, urging the nation to look beyond the headlines and remember the monarchy's role as a unifying symbol. Yet, the Fishers remained in California. Meghan announced plans for a global speaking tour, further intensifying her media presence and challenging the traditional royal narrative. She insisted that her story was far from over and that she would continue to fight for truth and justice, no matter the personal cost. The final act of this saga, however, belonged to Harry. Invited to a confidential meeting at Windsor, Harry confronted William and Charles with a mix of defiance and desperation. He pleaded for reconsideration, for a chance to rebuild bridges not just for himself, but for the future of his children. William, though visibly softened, remained firm. The family could not and would not bend to public pressure or personal grievances. The monarchy's survival depended on discipline and unity. As Harry left the meeting, he was met by a statement released on his behalf. He would respect the council's decision but reserved the right to defend his family's honor from afar. The monarchy, bruised but unbroken, now faces an uncertain future. The legacy of Meghan and Harry's return, temporary, tumultuous, and ultimately severed, will be debated for generations. And as the world watches, Princess Anne's silent strength, William's tactical resolve, and Meghan's relentless media storm continue to shape the destiny of the House of Windsor. The story may have reached its current conclusion, but in the ever-evolving saga of the British royal family, the final chapter is never truly written.